party people. How are ya? You're looking great. Just saying. Let's go ahead and ground ourselves in all the greatness that we deserve because really, how else are we going to get great? It doesn't just happen. Like, we have to put intentionality behind it. And even if we put no intentionality behind it, right? Even if we just stumble into greatness, if we aren't actually doing the act of recognizing ourselves doing great things, then no matter what we do, it's not going to matter, right? It's kind of like that. What is it called when you body dysmorphia, right? Where you see yourself as something in the mirror, but like your mind can't let you see anything else. That's why we create this frequency of greatness, right? We have to call it into our minds as much as we call it into our reality. Okay? It's important. Okay. Let's go ahead and ground ourselves in our greatness. That's where we just shout out things that we're doing that we feel awesome about. So that we can do more of that stuff. I don't know. It's pretty simple. Okay, but it is like a bigger mental thing, right? Mental shift. So my great thing is this bigger understanding of how powerful I am. And I'm not saying that from this place of like, oh my gosh, I'm so much better than you. It's like literally like, Hanna, how long is it going to take for you to recognize how when you say something, it becomes a reality even quicker than you're even ready for? And I had this conversation last night with myself when I was coming to terms with this reality. Like, Han Banan, love ya, really do. And you're willing to say things that you feel confident in. Why won't, when you know that this is how powerful you are, why won't you say things that you want to make them happen? Right? Like, what's holding you back? And then that became this internal conversation of, well, do I feel like I really deserve those things? Do I feel like I've done enough? Am I ready to arrive to those things? These are all the questions that I was asking myself. And it's like, yes, you're ready. You're worthy. You're loved. You're abundant. You're beyond, right? You're all these things. I'm all these things. And sometimes I think we question that power really with no backing of why. Why would we think that we are not these powerful beings? Every minute of our childhood is a practice in manifestation, if you really think about it. Think about it. I put my tooth under my pillow and I dream that in the morning it will be exchanged for $1. I write a list of the things that I want down for Christmas, and I send it to Santa, and I manifest those gifts, right? Think about it. We're practicing this type of work every day, and then somewhere we leave that because it seems like it's fantasy. It seems like it's not something that we should still be applying now, and yet, why would we practice it? Why would we have children practice this? Probably because it freaking works. And we want people to practice it, but then somewhere where we start to drown out, where we start to think that those are just childhood things, that those are not realities that we could actually apply to life because it's just in the fairy tales where you manifest the things that you want, where you write them down on lists and then they happen, where Rapunzel sits up in a tower and dreams that she will somehow get to leave this tower someday, and then guess what? Someone climbs up her tower unexpectedly out of nowhere. It wasn't out of nowhere, right? Like she'd done been asking for that. And then there it was. And I think that's kind of the trick that we get played on us. We get told that it's fantasy, that it's not real, that it couldn't be real, that these are childhood things, this dreaming thing, in order to trick us into stop dreaming and just start working into the treasury that is adulthood and adult life. And we deserve more than that. You deserve more than that. And I deserve more than that. And the more that I've been playing in manifestation and in demanding, demanding the things that I want or asking for the things that I want, the more that I receive them. And quite frankly, this time, the quicker that I just listen to them. I ask for the sign. I used to not believe that that was real, and I would push it. Last year around this time, I would have already almost been done working at my career, at my job. And it took me about 4 months of denying signs, and I would say probably even longer than that, 6 months of me asking for the answer, getting signs, me saying, nope, that couldn't be the sign, getting a harder sign, me saying, nope, that probably isn't the sign, right? Me getting another sign, and then so many signs that it just became wildly uncomfortable, and signs were coming out of absolutely nowhere. And now I better understand that those were signs intentionally put there in order to push me to make the decision, in order to guide me into what was inevitably mine. And these weren't like things that I wasn't asking for. These weren't things that I didn't put on my list to Santa, for goodness sakes. These were things that I deliberately asked for. I asked for signs. I asked for guidance. I asked for the answer, and when I asked for it, I was given it. And so no longer am I sitting and waiting and going, oh, what's the answer? Give me a sign. And then getting a sign and then going, well, just one more. No. Right? I am a powerful being, and if and when I ask for something, it will be delivered in the timeline, right, that is meant for me. And so I don't have to stress, and I don't have to question. I don't have to go, oh, was that the sign? No, if I ask, I know that the next sign will tell me which way I'm supposed to go, because I asked. And for all of us, I ask that we not force the universe, the signs, into giving us uncomfortable places of exit. I ask that we listen the first time. And if you don't feel confident in that, let's listen the second time. But know that if you're writing it down, it's made for you. It's meant for you. That's why we're supposed to write these lists. That's why we're practicing this. This isn't crazy stuff. This is reality. Why would we practice it if it wasn't something that was effective? Silly. Like, really, in the grand scheme of things, why do any of those kind of childhood things exist? Right? Probably because it's something we're supposed to practice and apply. And we practice manifesting a lot in our childhood normal behaviors. Isn't that kind of crazy? It's only crazy because we leave it there. And we could be doing more with it. So that's my great thing, realizing just the unquestioned power that I have to make things happen, and beginning to understand how and why we should apply that. Like, what should we be doing? What could we be doing if I was applying that to even more? If I stopped giving myself the answer and just started asking the question, just started asking for the next step. Because every time I ask, I'm given it. Right? And I have to stop questioning if it's the right time. Like, if I'm given it, it is the right time, period. And my questioning is the only thing that's going to detract from that happening. Period. Come on. Bananas in pajamas to think that it's not. And yes, I'm going to keep referencing Bananas in Pajamas. If you never watched Bananas in Pajamas, YouTube it quick. There's like a weird cartoon version that must have came out later, but like the 1992 Bananas in Pajamas version. And even then, guess what? I was an early bird because Bananas in Pajamas only came on at 6 a.m. And it ran from 6 to 7 a.m. And yes, guess what else? I woke up every day to watch that. There was no reason for me to wake up at 6. I'm certain of it. There was no one else awake except for maybe my closest sister in age, who probably annoyingly heard that theme song every morning to wake her up as it flowed through like the heat vent in our house. But you know what? Bananas in Pajamas was amazing, still is amazing. Shockingly annoying a little bit, but that's not surprising that that would be my favorite TV show. Anyways, we'll continue referencing that. If you want to know, it was a kid's cartoon that I grew up watching. Just for reference, Bananas in Pajamas, that's where it comes from. I actually hung out with my family last night and we were all having a good time laughing about Bananas in Pajamas and what an amazing show it was. In fact, I'm going to find my Bananas in Pajamas memorabilia today, because I can't even. It's got to be a part of this, you know? Like, come on. Okay, so today and every day, a majority of this is like, how do you make these things happen? How do we come back? Hanna, how do I get there from where I am today? And this is the truth of what I know to be true over and over and over again. If you think about it, really, really think about it, everything that we do is really just practice, right? And if you think about the school system and how the school system's set up, you're just practicing to comply to a list of things and do, right? Check boxes. This is where you're supposed to be at this age. Did we get to check that box off or not? Which is amazing, right? We want checkable things. We want to know that we're doing things that matter, that are in the interest of advancement. Perfect. Cool. School. Then if you ever were on a sports team, or you were a musician, or you practiced for a play, there was this level of, I do this over and over and over again. And with athletes, it's like we do so many things. And I always find this so laughable as a coach, because parents are always like, oh, it's the game, the playing time. That's what matters. And really, it's the exact opposite. Like, every second that you're in practice is where you're getting better. Games, if you didn't even have games, you'd probably be just fine, honestly. While games are awesome and trophies are awesome and all those things, because it's a measurement of where you're at, really, the only thing that you're getting out of anything is the practice. And so if you think about that, it's because of the time, right? You're going to repeat the same thing over and over and over and over again. And if you think about like Olympic swimmers, right? They're going to train 7 days a week, probably 3 times a week, everything that they eat, everything that they do with movement, with mental preparation. They probably spend all of their time for that. And they do what? A 1-minute race every 4 years? That's Bananas in Pajamas. right? But like, that's it. Those people who get to that level of greatness, what is true behind every single one of those people? They did it just a billion times, right? And there's a famous speaker who talks about in order to become an expert, you have to put in 10,000 hours of time. 10,000 hours. Maybe it's minutes. I should look that up. I won't look it up right now, but it's a lot of time, right? And you're going, oh my gosh, Hannah, like literally I struggle to tie my kids' shoes in the morning. I struggle just to like get up. How do we do that? How do we find time to put in 10,000 hours to something to become an expert? Guys, one little change at a time, but the better you can get about consistently practicing that, whatever it is, it's about consistency. It's about structuring your core so that when it's questioned, right? When it comes up for debate, when you get nervous, when your back is against the wall, at your core, you are these things. And that's actually what I work with organizations on and teams of people is like, what is at the core? What do you know to be true even when it's tested? Because here's the thing. Your core, who you are, right? If you're an organization, if you're a team, who you are and what you're working on, if you don't know that, if every single person on your team can't confidently say what those things are, then when they go out there, it's up for debate, right? When you're out in that real world, it's up for debate. It's the same thing as when I was talking about when I was going out into the real world, I didn't quite know how to show up, right? I haven't practiced showing up. But I have to push myself to continue showing up in order to keep practicing how I want to show up, coming back, reviewing, right? This podcast is a great place to review. I also journal in the mornings. I also just generally overly obsess about that. Like, do you ever come home from a meeting and go, okay, let's think about the performance. You know, did I say things right? And not even like, did I present well? Who was I? How did I sit there? Was I present? Was I focused? Did I show up in conversations how I wanted to, or did I gossip, or how did I interact with people? Do you come home and do that review? Or am I the only crazy person here? No, that's not crazy. Right? That's accountable. That's accountable to who you are and who you want to be. And at the basis of your core, if you don't have an understanding of who that is and how they show up and how you walk through this world and what you're going after, and this applies to any team that you're on, this applies to anyone that you work with, if you're not sure of those things when it is tested, right? When you're at the water cooler and somebody's making fun of your boss, are we shutting that down? Or are we feeding that cancer? When you have a chance to opt out and to just shrink lower and to pull yourself back into those old activities that you know and love and do easily because you've been doing them your whole life, do you fall back? Or do you stand strong? And you're going to waver, right? It's not always going to be perfect. It really is just more about the review. Did we stand firm in the things that we know to be true? Yes, no. Do we even know what those are? Do we even know at our core who we want to be, what we are about, and what we're going after? And if we don't know those things, it's probably going to be pretty hard to stand on that foot. It is going to be tested. No question. You are full of tests your whole life. Right? And like, I want you to know what that core is. I want you to know who you are so you can stand firm in that. I am always going to imagine that greatness is one of your core things. We practice it every day. greatness is a storyline that we can't even remove from ourselves anymore, in the hopes, right? That guess what? When that is tested, when someone is like drilling you about where you went to school and how much experience you think you have and X, Y, and Z, fill in the blank, and they're questioning you, right? That's your test. That's your back up against the wall. And if greatness isn't ingrained in your core, we probably stumble all the way back down. And we let that person disempower us, and they absolutely shouldn't. We should know how to speak when we're called on, when our greatness is called on, when it's called into question, when we get the chance to stand up and move forward in it. This is how we build that core. We are practicing every day for the 5-second race every 4 years. It is that big of a deal, and it's not just for the freaking Olympics, people. This is you, this is your life, and this doesn't just apply to your physical endeavors. This applies mainly to the mental ones. Right? How strong of mental person are you building? How much love and time and nurturing do you put into your mentality? Right? And if you're sitting here and you're going, well, you're just talking crazy. I don't even know. If I was backed into a corner, I couldn't tell you what I'm about. Well, I'm going to tell you. It's important. It's really important. And I know that that's wildly uncomfortable for some people, because you're going, it's easier not to know. I don't know what I'm about. I don't know what I want to do. It's just really, it's like, let's just hang out, like I'm just good. I'm good with going with the flow. And like, I love that about you. No question. Okay. As a person who is great also at going with the flow, I also realize how important it is to back that flow with a firm foundation so that the flow actually makes sense and we don't just end up wavering and waving our flag wherever anybody wants us to go. If we never decide anything, guess what happens? Right? We end up like somewhere around the age of 30, maybe. This is completely hypothetical. And like we're looking around and we're like, oh my gosh, I think I'm supposed to be happy, but I seriously just honestly constantly think about how unhappy I am. And like, I really have no reason to be unhappy because like I did all the things I was supposed to do. So how do I fix this? Maybe it was a money thing. No, it's not that. Maybe it's like, right? And you come up with no answer, hypothetically. And when you come up with no answer, all of a sudden you start to review on your life, and maybe you go to like a cool conference or you read a cool book, and all of a sudden you realize like this light bulb goes off in your head, and you realize that you've sort of just agreed to everything everyone else told you to do, and you didn't really make any decisions for your life. You sort of just went with whatever made sense according to whatever anyone told us we were capable of, but we didn't decide what we were capable of, and so now we're actually doing less than we're capable of because we went according to probably someone else's predictions, which weren't really true to any of us. And then, maybe we decide that we're going to try something else. Like, you can't. Actually, you can. You can start to stand back up, start to decide what you want, because what I don't want for you, if you are a go with the flow person, not saying I am. Okay, I'm saying I am. If you are, I don't want you to wake up. I want you to wake up and say that you decided this. And maybe you can't say that right now, right? Maybe you can't say, yep, I picked this. I would keep picking this, and here's why. And no, this is not too small. No, I know I'm capable of more, but I don't know what that is. No, let's figure out what that is. What is capable of more? What are those things when you close your eyes that you see, right? Or think about all the time? You know, one of the reasons that I started this show was because I loved podcasts, period. And I was like, man, if I could ever create a podcast, like that would really be making it for me. That's the coolest thing ever. You know, for people to just be like, oh, I'm a podcaster. Oh my gosh, you are cool. Huh? What? You have your own podcast? Sheesh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that is pretty cool. And I thought that would be cool. And so maybe I would just go try and do that. Like, what would be cool to you? And then who do you need to be that person? Because not all of us are meant to like lead grand armies and do those things, right? But like most of us are capable of more than we're doing right now. And I am telling you, the capability comes from your ability to just get super consistent with the practice of becoming that person. Because like, oh, you know, tomorrow I really just think that I want to be this super morally strong person who's just like a light. And then I woke up and I decided that, and then every day I was just the light. I was perfect. I never gossiped. I never did anything bad ever again. Right after I made that decision. Wrong-o. It doesn't happen that way. Right? It's a constant practice. Even people who are like practice and pros, and you're going, oh, Michael Jordan, you probably don't need to work on your jumper. Yeah, if Michael Jordan picked up and decided he was going to go back to the NBA right now, I'm guessing even he would have to practice. Right? Come on. How are you working on the mental side? How are you exemplifying what it is you want to become? What time are you investing in yourself? And when you're doing that, are you actually there? Are you thinking about all the things that you're not doing because you're doing this thing? And I know that's hard, right? Presence is actually one of the very first things that I wanted to work on and commit to. And the moment that I did, I could finally start to actually absorb information, right? That I was taking in, that I was reading, that I was listening to, all those things. I could finally absorb it. And every second before that, I was just like, bounce it. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Because in order to absorb, you would have to assume that you don't know everything. That was one of the things that held me back. And you would also have to give yourself the ability to tap fully into that thing. And how do you do that? Well, time blocking is a really great way. Just to hit that again. But also just setting that intention. I am reading. I am just reading. Brain, we are going to read this information and reset as many times as necessary. Right? I have to call myself back all the time. And this last week, it was extremely hard. And we're going to continue reviewing and refining and perfecting how we get to a more focused, conscious state. But I have to call myself back all the time during reading. Hey, mind. Read these words. Absorb this. This is information that we need. Right? It's a constant practice and review. But at your core, what are the things that you want to be true about yourself? And how are you living up to those? And do you know what they are? Does your team know what they are? If it's question at a water cooler, Who's backing it? And what do they say? As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world. Dun, 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 dun.